Welcome to a new episode of the City Gents. You got your primary host today. It's King Javon, and I got my co-host here.
You still with that primary stuff, bro. We gonna have to fight when I get back to Chicago.
Hey,
This is Santiago, and with us today we have a special guest,
what
Javon.
happened to that speaking?
Hmm?
What happened to that Spanish speaking though?
Oh, it's too early, bro.
We were
It's
recording
too
this
early, man.
episode pretty early in the morning. We got a special guest, as always. Every guest of ours is special. We got one of my good friends here, Courtney Pack.
Friends. Best friend, but
Yeah, that is very true. So tell us about yourself. Pack, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the City Gents. How's the morning going for you?
My morning is here. I'm grateful to see it. As long as I have caffeine, I'm great.
Fair enough. What about you, Santiago? How's your morning? How's your week been, bro?
Rough, G. I'm working on moving. My situation with that last place it didn't go as planned, but patience is a virtue. So I'm glad I waited, got into something better. So just focusing on that. But other than that, everything is everything, bruh.
Good, man. I'm really happy to hear that. So I did want to take some time. I know it's a early morning, but today was the first day that COVID was confirmed in the United States, which is kind of interesting. So I just wanted to take some time to recognize that, those people that have suffered from COVID, people that's the traumatic events that has caused our country, and everything else that come along with it. So I just want to take a few minutes to say that. Hope people are feeling better. Hope everyone is enjoying the year, even though it's a new start.
Wow.
So let's get into the episode. So we got an interesting episode for you all today. We're going to dive into some of our critics, Courtney Pack here, talk about one of Patrick and I episodes as far as men having to be focused on themselves before they end relationships. So
Yeah, she didn't agree with us,
No.
which is, I love the fact that she said that and she was willing to come on. So we're definitely going to dive into that, get different perspectives. That's what we always encourage here on the City Gents. Did I say jinx? See, bro, it is too early.
it'd be like sometimes.
But yeah, so it's gonna be, stay tuned, listen, got a different perspectives and stuff. It's gonna be great.
Let's get into it. So Courtney, tell us what your critics was. Episode that we're referring to is our episode in this season, excuse me. This season, we talked a lot about focusing on getting on your purpose, focusing on being the person that you need to be before you're in relationships, but not even in relationships, just focusing on yourself in that growth category of your life. So that's what this season has turned into, and the season will move forward into. So, Courtney, you said that you don't always agree with that men should be focused on themselves before they end relationships. Can you expand on why you don't agree with that?
I don't agree with men not going towards, I guess you could say, the relationship category just because they don't have everything in line. You could be, a person that maybe isn't making quite the income that you want yet, doesn't exactly have that dream job like sitting right in front of you, but it doesn't mean that you aren't prepared as a person to be good to somebody else. So, like, what I mean by that is, yes, it helps if you come into the relationship, job secure, money secure. You have all of those things secure. I think a person can appreciate that, but I think a person can also appreciate, hey, I'm still a stepping stone to what it is I'm trying to do. However, that doesn't mean you still can't be the person that you will be in the end to them now and later.
All I'll let you tackle this, Santiago.
Oh, you gonna just push it out? You see what you see? He want to be the primary host, but he want to give me the first crack at it. Nah, okay, I got it. Oh, Courtney, real quick, if you want to pull, if you pull your camera just a little bit up? It's kind of cutting off your forehead. I don't know if you were aware that way we can all get a yeah. There we go. So I definitely understand your perspective, where you coming from, and I appreciate you coming on. My view on this is, I stand firm to what I said on that. And what I mean more is I do agree with the aspect of you don't need to have everything together. I do agree with you on there. Where our perspectives are a little different is I believe that there is a certain level a man should be at before even engaging in a relationship with anyone. And the reason for that is I believe if you're not where you need to be, that relationship, even if it's a positive or good one, can become a distraction from you getting to your goal. And then what that turns into is your significant other that you're with is like, hey, this man is only at this point, but I know he said he has these goals to get to. I can rock with that for some time. It's cool. But then in that he can, and usually I've been guilty of this to an extent in the past as well, lose himself within the relationship because he's not all the way put together himself, and he's trying to also navigate his life with somebody else. So it's definitely a fine line between codependency and that teamwork type of perspective. And I believe in a man is a better place, not just necessarily financially, although that helps. Even from an emotional standpoint, it is better if he's able to be that to the extent to go forward into a relationship.
Right. No, I mean that makes it so much easier, but I think it just comes down to, like, are you able to just kind of balance? Like, are you mentally like at a place where you don't get overwhelmed? You can do a relationship. You can put your foot down and say, okay, I'm gonna, pursue you. But guess what? My career right now is vibing hard. This is
Yeah.
my main concern. This is my priority as well. So I'm telling you up front, I'm not gonna just be that person who's got all the time in the world to give to you. Sometimes maybe you won't even hear from me because this is what I'm focused on. So if you can do that and balance it, see, that's the hard part. And even for me, like, that's hard. So
I agree, and that's what that part. Yeah, I definitely 100% agree with, and that's where we said you should be focused because again, it is hard. There are some people who can do it. They're like, hey, I got my career, I got this, and they can
Yeah.
have that conversation and saying it is always easy, almost, saying things always, but they could actually stick to that going around. It's really difficult for people to really hold on to the career when they're navigating, not for everybody, but some people when they're navigating a relationship. So that's why, again, I think it's best, and then we're gonna hear from Javon because he mighty silent down there right now. But that's why I think
Yeah.
it's best just to know where you're at. Have that mental and emotional, stability to be able to not only say that as you say, like, hey, yo, I'm rocking with you. I definitely want to pursue you, but my career is my number one focus, and be able to stick to that. If you can do that, then all the count you, in my opinion, which doesn't really hold any weight for anybody else, but you're ready for a relationship.
no,
It's the
that's
man
that's
who
hard,
get. Hmm?
right? That's super hard to just cut those lines
It,
because, from female perspective, like, we assume that, okay, like, you can do this. You, like, there's enough time on the plate. You got time
yeah,
to do you got time to get your exercise in, you got time to still come meet me. Like you said, it sounds good, but doing it is totally different.
yeah. And
Yeah.
let me ask you real quick. You touched on I guess from very very briefly just going to gym and stuff like that, and that goes down kind of what I was saying in the previous episode. So you know, you meet somebody and they're very health conscious or whatever, but then in the relationship, you know, you how they say that relationship good, you know, you like, I already got my person, so I don't really need to do this anymore. We all fall into that trap, you know. It just happens. It's happened because you get comfortable. You're like, yo, I'm with my person, I don't really need to do that. But in that, they could kind of, you know, let some of the aspect that initially attracted you to them go. For you, how do you have that conversation with somebody if that happens from either a physical, even our emotional level? Maybe some things that didn't bother them that bother them now, or how do you navigate those conversations?
Well, first off, by having the best friend that I have, that's never been acceptable. Just as far as not even like on a like shady how you know exactly just how you look wise, but just
Right,
for your health.
right,
But
exactly.
people fall into those. You meet somebody for a while and then you do get comfortable. You just have to be able to have, I guess, really good communication. It's not offensive. And
Yeah.
be able to say, you know, I hear you. You know, when we first met, you seemed like this was a priority, and now you kind of letting yourself drift. Like I said, it's hard for me
I
to
like
kind
that phrasing. You let yourself drift.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I
it's
like
hard
that.
for me to put it like in an ease terms because I've been around people that don't put it like so ease, like they just
Like,
tell it exactly how it is. So I always try to put it in a, you know, nice way because you don't want to like come across a little
yeah.
rough, like you like really slacking. Like,
You're like, nah, you need it. Hey, I signed us up for a class. Let's go together. Like, yeah, I get you. Javon, what are your thoughts on some of the things?
So my thoughts are, well, I have a few thoughts. Let's talk about this weight thing. Being that me and Courtney are so close, like she said, like I'm very much, she know I'm very blunt about it. Like with anyone, like I'm just like, hey, um, I usually like hit the as a person that I am. I'm going to usually hit something like, hey, you want to go to the gym together? So I'm going to ask to do something together. If they don't take them clues, then we got to have a more harsh conversation. Like, hey, I want this for both of us. I don't just want this for you. And I think that's important too. I do feel though that it's a lot easier for men to notice those type of things about their significant others
Yeah.
and be more patient about it. I feel like women sometimes will be like, oh, well, you're starting to kind of let yourself go. Not all women, but a lot more women are a little bit more, they're observant and they don't always say anything. Men will say something and kind of like figure out a way to smoothly say it, or sometimes we just say it very bluntly. Women, they don't always say it, but they notice it. And it's one of those things that they may be like, oh, I'm not as attracted to my husband or my boyfriend or my whoever as much as I used to be. And I think that is a difference that I've noticed. That's not everyone, but that's the difference that I have noticed with how men and women operate when it comes to those things. Another thing is when we talked about men being on a purpose, and I specifically say purpose because your purpose can be encompass what you find your finances. Your compass can and focus your mental health, your emotional health. And I do think I'm going to stand down, as they say, quote unquote, 10 toes down, that you need to be focused before you in the relationship. There's no way that you, in my opinion, there's no way that when we talk about distractions, if you're not even secure within yourself, understanding who you are as a human being, male or female, but I'm a male, so I can't really talk as much on women, then I would expect that you know that she will leave you at any time. At any time when she noticed that security is gone. So if your security within yourself is not there, then she's going to give you a little bit of time, but she may start to drift away from you emotionally, and then eventually it's going to be physically. If you're not able to take care financially for it, not all women want kids, but they want some type of security. If that's security for themselves or security for future
Right.
kids.
Right.
So if you can't do that, then why is she gonna feel like she can trust you if things get rough? That's one thing. Emotional insecurity. Not all women are emotional, but you have to be able to balance out your significant other. So if you can't even balance yourself out when she goes through rough times, how does she expect you to balance her out? So I think when we talk about being on your purpose, being focused on yourself and getting those things together, men have been slacking for so long. And that's where it comes in, where a lot of men are struggling when they get in these relationships and getting love. And then men are often, like you said earlier, Santiago, they getting lost and not knowing who they are. And then they get so complacent in these relationships and it becomes toxic attachment more so than anything else, because they don't know how to let that person go, because they gave someone so much of themselves and lost themselves in that relationship because they wasn't emotionally secure within it.
Yeah, turns to codependency rather
Yeah.
than a team.
Yep.
But yeah, Courtney, definitely want to hear kind of some of your perspective on what Javon said.
I mean, I get his side. If you not together yourself, how can you be together for somebody else? Again, it still comes back to balance. Like, one thing I do agree with is it's very appealing for a female to see that a guy has his shit in line. Like, period.
Right.
That's super appealing. They're gonna want to stay in that position if they see that. Now, it is very unappealing to see that, for example, if they can't take care of themselves or maintain whatever's going on with them, how can they do it for you? However, sometimes you can help balance each other out,
Yeah.
not necessarily in a codependency way, but you can, like I said, you can kind of grow and build on, maybe you came into the relationship and, for example, like me, I think a relationship can also help you with, just kind of small errors on your own part. Like if you're a hothead and you're known to like just be crazy dramatic, but maybe you with somebody that's like laid back and like super chill, very, very opposite of you,
Yeah.
they can kind of just help out with, okay, you having one of those days, bring it down a little bit. You don't have to, shout and be doing all of this stuff to make a point. Like sometimes you be surprised just hearing like from a guy perspective, like you don't have to do that. You don't have to come across, you don't have to be so extra all the time. That can be helpful sometimes, not in a codependency way, but as a, guess what, I'm your friend, I'm, your future spouse, I'm letting you know you don't have to do that. You could approach it this way. That's been helpful. I know, like for me, so to each his own.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people need to be by themselves and really focus on let me get it right on my own. I don't want other people's opinions telling me, oh, how I should, learn to handle myself better. Like they don't want that. And I get that too, because I don't want nobody telling me nothing.
So do you feel that you, if say for example, from a, you're a woman, I know you can't speak to every woman, but you can speak to some. Do you feel like, going back to kind of what me and Santiago have said in the previous episode, that a woman will leave you at some point if you don't continue to, when we talk about being secure within yourself, if you're not displaying those qualities, she will eventually end up leaving you.
100%, as she should. I don't know. I feel like it's best to, if you see something wrong, or if you feel like in your gut, like, okay, this isn't helpful. Like, if you need to walk. There's no wrong in it. Like, every female should have a perspective of, I'm a queen. I deserve to be treated as such. Not every female does, though. Some females don't see it that way. They feel like I can deal with it, and they don't have to.
Well, then I have a follow-up question, but I heard what you said, but it makes me have a follow-up question for Santiago, and I'll answer the question as well. Santiago, why do you think that oftentimes as men, we will look past all this type of stuff? A woman don't have to have much together all the time, but we'll accept them and we'll be with them and will upbuild them when they're not together. Like, but a woman will leave us, kind of like what Courtney was just saying, will leave us.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm glad you asked this question. I know you saw it in my face, bruh. But real quick, give me like 30 seconds. Let me go backtrack to something you said as far as the physical appearance. So conversation, with the person I'm dating right now, I had made a joke with her, like, I'm always in the gym still. Sometimes not as consistently as I would like, but I am. Again, I can't afford to not be in the gym because my head's big. So, um, so anyways, I made a joke with her, like, I'm just gonna stop going to the gym and just let the gut just come out, just have that six pack, that dad bod already. And she kept it 100 with me. I can't be mad with her. She was just like, I didn't find you that way, so
Mm,
I don't want you to get that way. I'm like, I can't even be mad at that because you kept it a band.
bro.
But the thing was, I didn't find her a certain way either. So I had to navigate the conversation like, if this is an expectation you have of me, I have the same of you. And when with that, it is a double standard. Like, women can say this all about man's physical appearances, from their height to even their weight at times, to the way that they're built, to the beard, no beard, to just all that. The second a man says he doesn't like something because it's not his preference and it's involved with something of the physical, something physically with the woman, it's an issue. Now, I do recognize that some people are just rude, they're just jerks and whatever, but everybody has a preference. And if you communicate that preference in an appropriate way, I don't see any issue with that. Going into what King Javon said, the reason why men stay with women longer than women stay with men when it comes to it is because a lot of men do not value themselves,
Mm,
um, as they should. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying relationships are going to be all roses and stuff like that. It's just, if you think that you're in for a rude awakening when you get in a really grown, mature relationship, and I honestly believe that's why a lot of marriages don't work out now, especially with people around our age, is because social media and because we don't really know how to go through conflict effectively and appropriately. But men tend to
mm.
tolerate a lot of things, because I don't think, and I'm gonna give slack for this, but I don't think every woman's a queen. Um, my internet saying unstable.
Just stung me a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what
Oh,
I
got
mean by
triggered.
that,
Uh,
I'm gonna explain it. I'm gonna explain it. Every woman can be a queen, but they can be, but I don't think everybody is one, because, or just like every man ain't a king right away. You got to get to a certain point, because you have to
yeah.
be able to be like a queen, is that like literally that person by their side, putting in as much effort as they are. And I feel like a lot of, and
Mm,
this is not a lot, and I can't even really blame women for this, this is men's fault. A lot of men do not have
yeah.
expectations of their partner. Their expectations of their partner is really low. So like a lot of women communicate, hey, I need this from you, I need this from you, I'm this from you, right off the rip, right off the jump. Men will say, oh, I just need this, oh, just give me some sex and we're fine. No, bro, like you need somebody that's actually gonna be with you, like support you, like guide you, like that woman that's gonna be like, not saying that you need this all the time, but there's times when men just need that emotional support. Like, yo, I'm going through some. I just need some help guiding this, and this is why a lot of men are hypersensitive, or hyper aggressive to different situations. So I don't believe every woman is a queen. Every woman can be, but I also think that that's really at the fault of men, because we don't communicate our expectations and then we don't stick to them.
Yeah, I will piggyback off that and just say that I don't think that every man is a king either, like Santiago was saying, or every woman is a queen. And the reasons I feel that way is that it's a big portion where people are trash human beings. I mean, let's just get it like to let's be honest here. I mean, not every person is a good person. We see people that are like robbing and killing people. We also see people that are doing things that are not, you know, for me. I'm not attracted to some girl that's out here twerking. Like, to me, I'm like, if she's twerking on everybody in the club, that's not my queen. Like,
That's everybody else's queen, bro. She for the streets,
yeah.
bruh.
So I'm just saying, me, that's not my queen. So I mean, and what everybody's definition of their queen is different, because
Yes,
I completely agree with Santiago was saying, that it's the fault of men. And I'm only speaking from a man's perspective because I am a man. The problem has become also, look at OnlyFans, look at all these different sites that men have become so glorified of women than they are glorified of themselves, glorified of their faith, glorified of other things. They glorify vagina. You got men that's like literally drop everything they do, leave work, they'll do anything, but that's also a fault of men not knowing our own value, not being able to say like, hey, I don't need to run out to the club and chase after women every night. That's our fault. Not saying that women should be put on a pedestal, because they are. If you want a wife, you want a wife. It's up to a man to find a wife, vice versa, a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to put it on a pedestal. I'm not about to find my wife in the club. I already know that. It's not happening. So a big portion of it when it comes to women don't always respect a man who, as we just said, respect someone who's not on top of their game. They may deal with us for a while, but eventually they may leave us for someone else. At times, men will even date somebody that we know is not at the level we are, because we have a mindset that we're going to build at times, and women do too, because they'll date somebody that's not attractive. They'll be like, he just makes me laugh, but then they know that in the long run it's not going to make them happy, but they'll keep putting into it. We'll date the same way. Oftentimes we don't get credit that we hurt too either. Women and men both hurt. We just don't always show our emotions. We'll go through relationships and be hurt from a situation that we put ourselves into, but we don't always show the fact that we been hurt from it. And I think that's a big problem too, that we all have feelings, but we just show them differently.
Let's hear from Courtney. I definitely want to hear what she has to say.
That was a lot. Though, like, not every, like I said, it hurt my soul to hear that not every woman is equal. Like I said, every person is not, but every person that has an open mind state can change. Or,
I like
maybe they started out XYZ, and then guess what? Over time, they started to be like, you know what? I didn't have the right mind state at that point in time, but now, like, this is where I want to be. I'm getting it and learn. So, but like, everybody has patience. Come into the game knowing that, and they don't want to teach that. So that's okay too. Like, so I agree. Not everybody is a king. Not everybody is a queen, but that's why you have to be careful when you do relationship that maybe you got this far as quote unquote an adult, because there's like a huge difference between your adult relationship and your past flings or your exes or whatever you had. There's a huge difference, and the most important part is that you have to come in like super open with a headspace of I'm not the only person that's right. Versus, I think that's the biggest thing from like your adult relationship and your younger days, whatever, college days, whatever they refer to, is that you can't think that my way is the only way.
Yeah, and I agree that there are people at times that do, like you said earlier. I agree that there's some people that do grow together. That does happen sometimes, where couples from college who both kind of did whatever, or couples from high school like end up going on to be married. But there also has to be a level of growth within those people pretty quickly, I think. and it's usually shown, or sometimes those relationships often don't work out because people weren't able to grow by themselves separately. You can not, I'm not going to say all, but there are a lot of divorces, especially in those brackets of first loves, people being with their first loves, or people not actually having time to like grow as people. Sometimes they can come back together, but they had to have times where they grew as individuals, before they end up being back together. If they broke up in a certain fashion, or even if they didn't, you go through these times where you with someone, but you've been with someone all your life. So have you had time to experience who you are by yourself? And then when your partner goes out of town, or you may be on business for like a month or two, people are not secure, or they feel in some type of way because they can't handle the fact that it turned into a codependency.
Yeah, and I definitely uh oh, go ahead, Courtney.
No, what he said lastly, people that feel like they can't be alone. That's a big problem. That's a big issue. There's a lot of people, at least from just, I know recently, like people that kind of build their life, everything is just about, their partner, partner, partner.
Yeah.
That's huge red flag. If it's just that. Like there's no sister time. There's no brother time on that. Get caught up. You can't get caught up.
So is that, and it's really been in relationships in the past, in my life, where I can say for certain that looking back on it, there were some codependencies. Most likely because I was spending almost 6 with them a week.
Mm.
Especially like when I was in my younger, like very much younger years, I was spending like all my time with them, my other friends. Um, I wasn't interacting like with people. I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't do anything. And then it turned into a codependency where all I really had at that point, though I still interact with my friends somewhat, was like this dependency on like hanging out with this particular individual. And when that didn't happen, I'm like, what the heck? Why do I feel so uncomfortable? Like, because I created a unhealthy codependency where we didn't have lives outside of each other. And especially when I did this, I was in college. So that was kind of wild to do when you're in a stage where you truly should be developing yourself. You can be in a relationship, but you still should be able to develop yourself outside of that relationship.
Yeah, and that's yeah, definitely appreciate your perspective, Courtney, for real, because it just gives a different perspective. You as a woman in a relationship and navigating your own situation and just your own experiences. So I definitely thank you for that, for coming on. Just definitely want to make sure I mention that. Um, for me, like you said, like we've all, kind of been saying, adult and mature relationships outside of college are different. And I believe you said this, Courtney, about you need to approach situations where you're not always right. Like you're not approaching it where it's you versus me, it's us versus a problem. And that's one of the things that, how I approach it when, different things happen with the current relationship I'm in. One thing that's been an issue for me in the past is because of military, because of different levels of things that have happened. I'm not a very vulnerable person. I do not trust people to. Um,
Most men aren't. I know that sounds bad, but
yeah,
I have to state that.
no, I agree with you, and I believe in this. Goes to what Javon said a little bit earlier: is men feel like they can't truly be vulnerable because either a we choose to be vulnerable with the one woman, and she manipulates it, takes advantage of it, and makes it feel like we're less of a man for sharing our emotions. B, we don't know how to be vulnerable, like effectively, like appropriately. And what I mean by that is that hyper aggression, like you're trying to express yourself, but you're punching things and throwing things on the ground. Um, And the other thing is just not being taught that too. Some of us, unfortunately, didn't have that, weren't fortunate enough to have those strong role models when we were growing up. So we had to figure out how to be a man, either from, the mom, the aunt, or whatever. And they only can teach you so much. They
Right.
could do as much as they can, and they do. And I know a lot of ones that do a great job with it, but they only can teach you as how to be a man from their perspective. So there's just a lot of factors that I recognize that go into it. It's not just because of women, it's not just because of this, it's just a lot of factors. But for me, I was raised by both of my parents, but I had a problem with vulnerability because at times when I chose to be vulnerable, people would try to manipulate that, or it'll come back in an argument to try to make me feel less than. So even with my current relationship now, that's probably one of the bigger concerns we have from both of us, is just the complete vulnerability part. Because there was a situation that transpired, one of my friends getting killed, and then people, even though I was in a completely different city, people felt like I could have done something to stop it had I been there. And I'm reaching out to my significant other because this is something that's really affecting me, because this was a close friend of mine, and not feeling. I rarely reach out to people. So if I reach out to you because I need something, it's because your boy is hurt. So not feeling that makes it like, well, you can't require something of me, require vulnerability, require me to feel this type of way, or be open with you. And then the time that I try, and then I try again, because it's something new, so maybe you didn't expect that, and I try again, and it's met with either resistance or just lack of like care, in a sense. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. I'm sure there's a better way to phrase that, because I wouldn't say she doesn't care. um, but it just goes to where I'm not going to be vulnerable, I'm not going to open up.
Because it's easier to do that. It's like less problematic.
Yeah.
They can't use that to roll it against you, right? Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to like what you were saying earlier. In this generation, like millennials, a big thing you see now is marriage. Like you see all these divorce rates. Like you don't
Mhm.
see people that
Yep.
are together anymore. And then that kind of goes back to what you said as far as how you brought up. Like a lot of people don't realize that, not saying everybody, but a
Yeah.
lot of times when you meet somebody and let's say this, you realize, okay, this is my person, this person is dope. I think maybe I had it. Like I maybe finally got to the place where I thought I could never go. And then you take maybe I hate to say it, but like your toxic upbringings, then that
Mhm.
comes into it. And guess what?
Yep.
Maybe that person, was taught, okay, no, it has to only be, you know, this way versus, I mean, that can become an issue, yeah, upbringings as well. Like you said, that plays a part in it. If you didn't have like a male perspective to show you certain things, like you said, you can only be taught so much. So does that affect your relationships as an adult? Yes. How I was brought raised affects my relationship today. Like, so little things like that, you got to remember, like, okay, not only was I raised this way, but guess what? I can't even think for a second that necessarily that was right. Then you have an opportunity to go in and correct and learn from someone else. Oh, not what I'm used to, but can I be open to saying, it doesn't have to be exactly how I was raised, but we can
Yeah.
take both of those perspectives and blend them together and make our own way in
Yep.
the most healthy way. Because what it comes back to is, I think people, especially millennials, relationships is terrifying. Like when you
Yeah.
see that nobody could stay together, that divorce rates are so high, all you focused on is trying not to lose yourself in somebody in some toxic kind of way. So if you can stay level-headed, come into it, as honest as possible. Hey, like, for me, I grew up like super, super old school.
Mm.
So I was taught from, like female perspective, a man is supposed to pay this and a man is supposed to do this. And guess what? Like, I was really naive to think that nobody actually probably thinks that way now in this generation. So, gotta be able to like see somebody else's perspective because everybody's is so frequently different.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that as we, as our listeners, as you all are viewers, as you all navigate through relationships, as you in relationships, just be mindful. Like, get to know yourself. Even if you got into a relationship before you got to know yourself, still make sure you take time to get to know yourself, get to know your partner. I know that all three of us here have been in relationships, and navigating different for each one of us. And what I mean, to go a little bit more in depth, is that the person that I was with 5 years ago compared to the person I was with 2 years ago, whatever, just an example, are different people. And as you get to know the person you're with, you get to know their qualities, you get to know them, but make sure that you don't lose yourself in those relationships. Get to know them, have a foundation of like who you are, know who they are and what they can handle. I know Santiago was just bringing up, something he navigating with, or has navigated with his significant other. Courtney brought up her with money and being old school raised. So know yourself and know like what you bring to the table, but also know your partner and know like that they may not be no one's perfect. They may be ideal, but navigate that space the best way you can and get to know yourself and them.
Right.
And then for
Any
me,
final thoughts from you, Mr. Santiago?
yeah. So for me, I would say is know your worth. That goes in with knowing yourself. Again, if you're at a certain point of life where you can sustain a relationship, be able to compartmentalize it, where that doesn't consume your everyday activities and your everyday self, go for it. But if you know that you're not where you need to be, and that's going to be a distraction, it's okay to be alone. Like it really is. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you. If anything, you're going to be in a better headspace from being alone, be able to figure out who am I? Who am I? What can I do? I know people say this is weird, but I did this before because not that I couldn't invite somebody, but I went to dinner by myself a couple of times. I went to movies by myself because I just didn't want to be bothered with. I've done a couple different things by myself and alone. Just the just because I wanted to know I'm being able to do that. And then as far as the king and queen thing, you can't call yourself a king if you're out there not raising your kids and taking care of your business and doing what you're supposed to do as a man, and you still working that. I know it's pandemic, so take this with a grain of salt for what I'm saying. You're still working that $8, $10 an hour job, but you don't have any goals to progress from that. There's nothing wrong with starting that way. We all got to start somewhere. Sometimes we all got to go back. Like y'all know my story. I had to start my life over at 28 years old. So going back living with my parents and stuff. So those things happen. It setbacks happens. How you navigate past that. And you're not a queen if you out doing, because these titles are titles that are supposed to be attached with royalty. If you notice, there's not 100 kings and queens of any country in Africa. There's one and one. And then there's a royal bloodline. Same thing with England. So if you don't just say yes, queen, and yeah, king, go get it. They not kings and they not queens if they not doing what they're supposed to do. If you're doing what everybody else is doing out there, like Javon said, for him, his queen is just not in the club, and that's okay. That doesn't make him anything. We all have our own perspective, and I think Courtney said it great when she said that you got to realize that people are raised different, people have their own preferences, and they do. So we got to stop with, because you don't want to do what I want to do, there's something wrong with you. No, you need to be with somebody, and this is where I'm gonna wrap up. You need to be with somebody who's gonna force you to get out your comfort zone. A lot of us men and women want to stick with people who are not going to force us to grow. We're going to get with people who are toxic for us because it's just easier. Or the stupidest thing I've ever heard is because it's not boring. Bruh, I do not want all that drama. I am too grown for that. Like, I don't know how I was on Facebook the other day and I was people glorifying their toxic relationships. Like that's the weird flex for me. That's just such a weird flex. But you guys are all our capability of being kings and queens. You guys are all capable of finding somebody you want. But know your self-worth and you will be good. Do not care so much about what's going on in the world and other people's opinions.
Appreciate that, Santiago. Courtney, any final words?
You just gotta stay focused and keep your eyes open. Don't get caught up.
Appreciate that. I think the last thing I'll say is, I'm just closing out. If you are ever in a situation where you feel like you're stagnant and there's no growth, you have to be able to also get to a point where you're not afraid to leave the relationship. So I know that sucks to say. Relationships hurt, the pain of going through it, but if you're not happy, don't stay in something you're not happy with, and then years later you look back down the road and you're like, man, like I missed out on so much and I've never been happy in a situation. You can't force happiness. So I'll leave it at that. This has been the City Gents. This is King Javon. I'm out.
This is Santiago. Hasta luego. Once again, thank you, Courtney, for coming on. We'll definitely have you on back on for another topic or something. It was great having you.
Thank you. You guys too.
We're out.